The weight of choices. Amara's boots crunched against the frost-bitten pavement of the university town, her breath fogging in the late autumn air. At 21, she was a blaze of contradictions, vibrant, sharp-witted, but fraying at the edges. Her final year at Crestwood University was supposed to be her escape, a middle finger to the suffocating rules of her childhood home. Her parents, devout and unyielding, had preached discipline and modesty, but Amara craved freedom, the kind that burned through her veins like cheap vodka at a campus party. Freedom, though, came with a price. Her scholarship covered tuition, but rent, food, and the occasional night out drained her savings. She'd taken up odd jobs, waitressing, tutoring, even selling old clothes online, but the math never added up. Desperation crept in, and with it, choices she'd rather forget. A few late-night dates with men who paid for her company, their hands too eager, their smiles too sleek. She told herself it was temporary, a means to an end. But shame clung to her like damp rot. By spring, her body betrayed her. Nausea hit first, then exhaustion. A drugstore test confirmed her fear, pregnant. Amara sat on her dorm room floor, the stick trembling in her hand. She couldn't afford this, not now, not ever. Her upbringing screamed at her to keep it, but her reality demanded otherwise. She tried everything, herbal teas from shady websites, pills whispered about in campus bathrooms. Nothing worked. Her body, stubborn as her spirit, held on. Months passed, and Amara hid her growing belly under oversized hoodies. She avoided mirrors, her friends, her future. Fear gnawed at her, but so did something else, guilt, sharp and unyielding. By summer, she could no longer pretend. She fled to her family's village, a cluster of stone houses an hour from the university, hoping the hospital there could offer answers. The doctor, an older woman with kind but tired eyes, ran tests and frowned at the results. Amara, she said, voice steady but laced with disbelief, this isn't normal. The ultrasound showed not 1, not 2, but 12 heartbeats. 12 impossibilities. Amara laughed, a brittle sound, because what else could she do? The doctor spoke of miracles, of medical anomalies, but Amara had only the weight of her choices crashing down. She'd wanted freedom, and now she was tethered to something unimaginable. Labor came too soon, in the sterile glow of the village hospital. Pain tore through her, relentless, as nurses whispered prayers and machines beeped. When it was over, Amara lay spent, staring at the ceiling. 12 cries pierced the air, tiny, fierce, alive. 12 babies, each impossibly small but whole, lay in incubators, their existence a defiance of logic. The nurses called it a miracle. The doctor called it unprecedented. Amara called it nothing, because words failed her. She was a mother now, but the word felt foreign, heavy. Her past choices loomed like shadows. Recklessness, desperation, denial. Yet here they were, 12 lives demanding she face them. As dawn broke over the village, Amara sat by the incubators, her hands pressed against the glass. She didn't know how to be a mother, how to afford this, how to carry the weight of what came next. But for the first time, she felt something stir beneath the shame and fear, a flicker of resolve, fragile but stubborn. She'd made choices before, some she regretted, some she survived. Now, she'd have to make more, the burden of letting go. The village hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Amara sat, staring at the 12 incubators. Each baby, swaddled in white, was a tether to a life she wasn't ready for. At 21, she chased freedom, but now it felt like a cruel joke. The nurses whispered miracle, but to Amara, it was a cage, 12 tiny locks clicking shut. She couldn't do this. Not alone. Not now. Her past was a blur of faces, men whose names she barely remembered, whose wallets had kept her afloat. Identifying a father was impossible, her shame had erased the details. But the babies needed homes, and she needed out. The idea came like a fever: find the men, give them the children, let them carry the weight. It wasn't fair, but neither was her life. Amara left the hospital a week later, discharged but hollow. The village, with its stone cottages and gossiping elders, watched her every move. She clutched a list, names and addresses pieced together from old texts and fleeting memories. 12 men, 12 chances to unburden herself. The first was Liam, a grad student who'd paid for her company at a dive bar. She found him in a nearby town, grading papers in a cramped apartment. When she handed him the baby girl, wrapped in a blanket, his eyes widened. "This, mine," he stammered. Amara nodded, throat tight. She didn't know if it was true, but it could be. Liam hesitated, then cradled the child, his face softening. "I'll figure it out," he said. Amara left before gratitude or guilt could catch her. Not all were so accepting. Marcus, a businessman in his 30s, lived in a sleek house on the village outskirts. He laughed when she showed him the boy, his eyes cold. "You think I'd take some bastard kid? Get out." The door slammed, and Amara stood frozen, the baby's weight heavy in her arms. She left him on the doorstep, a note pinned to his blanket. Cowardice, maybe, but she couldn't look back. Each encounter carved a new wound. A mechanic named Tom wept, accepting a girl with trembling hands, promising to love her. A drifter called Jace, tracked to a rundown motel, spat curses and vanished into the night. Some men demanded proof, others didn't care. Amara moved mechanically, town to town, baby by baby, her resolve fraying with each goodbye. The village buzzed with judgment. "Irresponsible," the shopkeeper muttered. "Unnatural," hissed the church ladies. Rumors spread: Amara was a sinner, a fool, a tragedy. Her parents, silent since her return, left pamphlets about redemption on her bed. The weight of their eyes, the village's scorn, pressed harder than the babies ever had. By the 10th child, Amara was unraveling. She sat in a park, the last 2 babies asleep in a borrowed stroller. She thought giving them away would free her, but each handoff left her emptier. She pictured Liam's gentle hands, Marcus's sneer, Tom's tears. Had she doomed her children to uncertain fates? Was this freedom, or just another mistake? The final man, Ezra, lived in a quiet farmhouse. He was older, a widower who'd once tipped her generously for a night of conversation. When she handed him the last 2, a boy and a girl, he studied her face, not the baby's. "You're running from this, aren't you?" he said softly. Amara flinched. She wanted to lie, but her silence betrayed her. Ezra sighed, taking the children. "I keep them safe. But you carry this forever." Amara returned to the village alone, the stroller empty. The hospital, the incubators, the cries, they haunted her. She'd wanted to reclaim her life, but the cost was a new kind of cage, built from guilt and questions. Had she done right by them? Could she ever? The village's judgment was loud, but her own was louder, echoing in the quiet of her choices, the echoes of absence. 10 years had carved lines into Amara's face, each one a reminder of the choices she'd made. At 31, she lived in the same village, its stone houses now suffocatingly familiar. The university town, once her escape, was a distant memory. She tried to rebuild, to outrun her past, but the echoes of 12 tiny cries followed her everywhere. After giving away her babies, Amara had sought stability. She married Julian, a wealthy lawyer from an urban center an hour away. He was charming, older, and promised security, a clean slate. But the marriage crumbled under the weight of her secret. When doctors confirmed she could no longer bear children, a complication from the miraculous birth, Julian's affection soured. He wanted heirs, Amara could offer none. Their divorce was quiet, clinical, leaving her with a small settlement and a deeper sense of failure. She tried again with Samir, a kind-hearted trader who sold spices in the village market. His laugh was warm, his touch gentle. He didn't care about her past, or so he said. But Amara couldn't escape it. Nights brought dreams of incubators, of faces she'd never know. Samir wanted a family, and her barrenness became a silent wedge. When he left, he didn't blame her, but his pity stung worse than Julian's disdain. The village never let her forget. Whispers trailed her like shadows, the girl who birthed 12, the one who gave them away. The church ladies clutched their rosaries when she passed, the shopkeeper's wife spat cursed under her breath. Amara's parents, now frail, offered prayers but no warmth. She was alone, tethered to a past she couldn't undo. She worked as a seamstress, her fingers deft but her heart heavy. The urban centers beckoned, bustling cities where she could vanish, but the village held her, its judgment a perverse comfort. She'd visit the hospital sometimes, staring at the maternity ward, wondering where her children were. Were they loved? Were they safe? The questions gnawed, unanswered. One autumn day, in a market 2 towns over, Amara froze. A girl, maybe 9, stood at a fruit stall, her dark eyes achingly familiar. The same curve of her jaw, the same unruly curls. Amara's heart lurched. The girl was with a man, Liam, the grad student, now graying at the temples. He called her Lila, his voice tender. Amara watched, invisible, as Lila laughed, clutching an apple. She was vibrant, whole, alive. The sight cracked something in Amara. She didn't approach, she couldn't, but Lila's laugh followed her home. For years, she'd buried her regret, telling herself she'd done what was necessary. But seeing Lila, knowing she'd never know her mother, tore the lie apart. Amara wanted redemption, not for the village's sake, but for her own. She began searching, cautiously. She tracked down Ezra, the widower, now raising the twins in his farmhouse. They were healthy, shy, with her eyes. He didn't judge her, but his words from years ago echoed, "You'll carry this forever." She found Tom, the mechanic, whose daughter called him Papa with fierce love. Some trails went cold, Jace, the drifter, was gone, Marcus had moved away. Each discovery, each dead end, was a step toward something Amara couldn't name. Back in the village, she started small acts, volunteering at the hospital, mending clothes for struggling families. The whispers didn't stop, but they softened. Amara didn't expect forgiveness, not from the village, not from her children. But she sought meaning, a way to fill the absence she'd created. Lila's laugh, Ezra's twins, Tom's daughter, they were pieces of her, scattered but alive. And for the first time, Amara dared to hope she could piece herself back together, to the call to return. At 45, Amara stood at the edge of her small village garden, the weight of menopause settling like dust. Her body, once a vessel for miracles, now marked the finality of her childlessness. The years had softened her edges but not her regrets. She lived alone, her seamstress shop a quiet refuge, her days measured by needle and thread. The village still whispered, the woman who gave away 12, but Amara had learned to carry their judgment like a warm coat, heavy but familiar. News of the flood came in late spring. The river, swollen from weeks of rain, breached its banks, swallowing fields and homes. The village, already fragile, buckled. Families huddled in the church, their belongings reduced to sodden heaps. Amara, living on higher ground, was spared, but the call for help reached her through radio pleas and desperate knocks. She didn't hesitate. The village had never fully embraced her, but it was hers, its roots tangled with her own. She arrived at the community hall, now a makeshift shelter, with blankets and clothes she'd sewn. Mud-caked volunteers sorted supplies, their faces grim. Amara worked silently, distributing coats, mending torn taps. Her hands, steady from years of stitching, found purpose in the chaos. But it was the faces that stopped her, familiar eyes, familiar cows, now grown. Some of her children were here, raised by others, caught in the flood's aftermath. Lila, now 22, stood among the volunteers, her dark eyes scanning the crowd. Amara recognized her instantly, the girl from the market all those years ago. She was with Liam, her adoptive father, hauling water jugs. Then there was Ezra's twins, Isaac and Leah, now 21, helping their father rebuild a neighbor's wall. Amara learned of another, Tom's daughter, Maya, a nurse tending to the injured. For over 12, living in the village, their lives woven into its fabric without her. Her heart ached, but it also stirred. These were her children, strangers yet not, shaped by hands she'd chosen in desperation. They didn't know her as their mother, and she didn't dare claim them. But the flood had stripped away pretense, and Amara saw a chance, not for absolution, but for something closer to amends. She approached Lila first, offering a thermos of tea during a break. "You're doing good work," Amara said, voice steady despite her pulse. Lila smiled, wary but kind. "Thanks. It's a lot." They talked, small things, weather, the shelter's needs. Amara didn't confess, but she listened, memorizing Lila's laugh, her strength. With Isaac and Leah, she brought tools to their worksite, earning a nod from Ezra. Maya, she helped with bandages, their hands brushing as they walked. Each moment was a thread, fragile but real. The village noticed. The church ladies, once quick to condemn, saw Amara's tireless hours. The shopkeeper, whose son Maya had bandaged, offered her a free coffee. Whispers shifted, "She's helping, she's here." Amara didn't seek their approval, but it lightened her load, just enough. One night, as rain pattered on the shelter's roof, Lila approached her. "You're Amara, right? People talk about you." Her tone wasn't cruel, just curious. Amara froze, nodding. "They say you had a lot of kids." "Gave them up." The words hung, sharp but not accusing. Amara's throat tightened. "I did what I thought I had to," she said, barely a whisper. Lila studied her, then nodded. "Must have been heavy." She walked away, but the exchange lingered, a crack in the wall between them. Amara kept going, delivering food, sewing clothes, sitting with those who'd lost everything. She didn't ask for forgiveness, not from her children, not from the village. But she offered what she could, her hands, her time, her presence. Isaac thanked her one day, Leah shared a quiet smile, and Maya called her a godsend without knowing the truth. Each gesture was a step toward reconciliation, not with them, but with herself. The floodwaters receded, leaving scars on the land and stories in the village. Amara returned to her shop, her garden, her solitude. But something had shifted. The village saw her not as a cautionary tale, but as one of their own. Her children, some still strangers, were no longer just echoes, they were here, and so was she. Redemption wasn't a destination, Amara realized, but a path, one she'd walk for the rest of her days, the legacy of 12. At 50, Amara stood in the heart of the village, scissors in hand, cutting a ribbon across the entrance of the new community center. The building, a modest structure of brick and timber, hummed with life, children's laughter, the clatter of dishes, the murmur of volunteers. The sign above read, "The Gift of 12, a name Amara had chosen with quiet resolve. Her pain, once a private wound, had become a purpose, and the village, once her judge, now stood with her. The flood 5 years ago had changed everything. Amara's tireless work, stitching clothes, feeding families, rebuilding homes, had softened the village's heart. But it was the glimpses of her children, scattered yet present, that lit a fire in her. She'd spent decades running from her choices, but no more. The center was her answer, a place for vulnerable children and families, a refuge for those teetering on the edge as she once had. She'd poured her savings, her seamstress earnings, and donations from newfound allies into the project. The village pitched in, carpenters, bakers, even the church ladies with their skeptical but willing hands. Amara's vision was simple: no child would feel abandoned, no parent would face desperation alone. The center offered meals, tutoring, counseling, and a safe space, its walls lined with drawings from kids who called it home. Reuniting with her children was slower, more delicate. After the flood, Amara had sought them out, not to claim them, but to know them. Lila, now 27, was the first to learn the truth. Over coffee at the shelter, Amara had confessed, her voice trembling. Lila listened, her face unreadable, then said, "I need time." Months later, she returned, not as a daughter, but as a friend, volunteering at the center. Isaac and Leah, Ezra's twins, came next, their bond with Amara growing through shared work, painting walls, planting gardens. Maya, the nurse, joined as a medical volunteer, her warmth bridging years of absence. Amara tracked down others. Tom's daughter, Sophie, now a teacher, brought her students to the center's reading program. Two more, raised by a couple in a nearby town, visited cautiously, their curiosity outweighing their wariness. Some remained out of reach: Jesus' child, lost to the drifters' wanderings, Marcus's, adopted far away. 9 of the 12, though, found their way to her, not as a mother in name, but as a presence, a constant. They didn't owe her forgiveness, and she didn't ask for it. Their laughter, their stories, their lives were enough. The village watched, its whispers turning to tales. Amara, once a pariah, became a leader. The shopkeeper donated flour for the center's kitchen. The church ladies knitted blankets for the kids. Even her parents, frail and quiet, attended the ribbon cutting, their eyes soft with something like pride. Amara didn't need their approval, but she welcomed their change. Her story spread beyond the village, carried by travelers, woven into a folktale. The woman of 12, they called her, a mother who lost everything and built it back, not for herself, but for others. Children at the center recited it, their voices bright, learning that mistakes didn't define you, second chances did. Amara smiled when she overheard, her heart full but grounded. The tale wasn't about her glory, it was about resilience, about the strength of a community that chose to heal. One evening, as the center buzzed with a family dinner, Amara stood at the doorway, watching. Lila served soup, joking with Isaac. Maya bandaged a child's scraped knee. Sophie read to a circle of wide-eyed kids. The room glowed with collective strength, a legacy not of blood, but of choice. Amara's eyes stung, not with regret, but with gratitude. She'd bet 12, lost them, and found them again, not as hers alone, but as part of something greater. The village sky darkened, stars piercing the dusk. Amara stepped outside, the cool air a balm. The gift of 12 wasn't just a building, it was her life's work, a testament to forgiveness, to the power of turning pain into purpose. She'd never erase her past, but she'd built a future, one where no one had to walk alone. And in that, Amara found peace.